Okay, so where we stopped at the conditional statements, right? So,
Yes, correct.
okay, let me share my screen. I'm sorry. Okay, so basically, in the if statements, we have if, else if, or else else. So, for example, let's say you have um, more than two conditions you would like to execute in one code block. So you can use the if condition, and if it is failing, then it will go to the if else if, and then if it is also failing, then the last one, whatever it is, it will be executed. So you can have as many else if as you can. So now let's see how we can have this one. For example, here the temperature I'm giving a 15. If temp is equal to 15, I would like to print it's warm. Okay, for example, else if temperature, for example, let's say if it is greater than 15, I would like to print it's nice. For example, if in case if it is like less than 15, see over here, I'm not going to mention it is like less than 15 over here. So this is how we are actually using it in such a efficient way. Or else I can do like, else if temp less than 15. So this is something, even though if you don't write, if you just use else here, so basically it will not take that kind of a time to execute to look into this one. So it will look this one, it will look this one, and by default it comes to here. And if both of them are not like executing, then it will print this it's cold. So if I execute this one, so right now let's say this is 14, it will execute as it's cold because it is not equal to 15 and it is not greater than 15, it is 14. For example, if it is like some 16, it will print it's nice. So it goes to here. If this is like condition is matching, it will execute all the lines over here, whichever the code here, or else it will come here. So in here, if it is 15, then it will execute this one. If neither of this is like executed, then it comes to the else. So this is the reason why intents are like more crucial when we code this one. Yep. Okay, now so let's see the same one using a ternary operator. Have you heard about this ternary operator before?
Apparently, no.
Okay. How this works? Whatever the if condition that we wrote over here, for example, let's say if the person age is like more than 22, higher greater than 22, or equal to 22, the person is eligible for something. For example, let's say right to vote or something. Like for example, let's say 18 years, or else it is not eligible. For example, let's say age is equal to 18. If age greater than or equal to 18, print eligible to vote, or else so print not eligible to vote. So this is like very much straightforward. So we know like how this works now. So now if you see over here, so I have used like 4 lines of code, which is like, okay, just assume that if you have to write like some blocks like this. For example, this is one block like this. For example, let's say you have to write some 20 or 30 blocks. So for each and every block, it will take like 4 lines of program at least, because you have to use if condition and else condition. So 20 into 4 is like 80 lines of program you have to write. So writing the program is never ever a problem, right? But maintaining the problem in the longer term is always a problem. So for example, let's say if you write a code and if it is in the production, right after, for example, let's say after 6 months, some person came to you and said like, hey, we have our requirements got changed and I wanted you to modify the program, the code and all. Now if you have like some 60 lines or 80 lines of program, then you have to go to each and every line, you have to understand this one and that one, and you have to like make the modifications, and again you have to test it further and further until everything is fine. So basically the maintenance is the hardest part in everything, whether it is a project management or like a tool or like a code and all. So that's the reason we have to use the syntaxes effectively, that how we can write a program in less words and less number of lines. So which also end of the day it helps us to execute the program much faster. So that's one of the reasons where we are going to use the ternary operator instead of writing the same program for 4 lines. So what I'm going to do, so if you see over here the same one here, if age greater than or equal to 18, I would like to say eligible to vote. So see over here, so if it is like this one, execute this one, or else not eligible to vote. See this one, the same one, whatever we wrote earlier with 4 lines of code, I'm going to execute the same in just 1 line. See, eligible to vote. For example, let's say if the person age is less than like 17 years old, it's like not eligible to vote. So this is what we call as a ternary operator. So the same one, instead of like multiple lines, we write everything in 1 line. This is something that you will see like multiple times. If you start using Python or if you start reading someone else's scripts and all, they will use these ternary operators more often.
Yeah.
Any questions on this one?
No, that's cool.
Okay, cool. Okay, now let's see the
So
logical.
you can take multiple else if as well, right? For this scenario operator. You can write multiple, like for example, if we needed to write else if in between, we can also use it, right?
Yes, we can also use else if, everything over here. Yeah. So this is like more practical one. So where I usually don't suggest this one to use. For example, let's say if you have like elif, and again one more elif. So basically, if you try to write everything in this program in one block of code, 1 line of code, it will create more confusion. So in those cases, I usually strongly suggest to all of my team members and every of my student, like you go with this one only. But if you say like if you have just like 2 blocks or something like this one, so instead of this, you go with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and also like the art of reading. So I mean, once after you write the program, you should be very much comfortable in terms of you yourself reading the code. If for example if we write like something like this one, you see here, for example, if I write like this one, now if I have to read this one, it will be very difficult for me, like to scroll it all the way to write and read and understand everything. So this is one of the reasons I don't prefer to use this ternary operator when the code block is like more, like when there are like more elif statements.
Yeah.
Cool. Good question, man. Okay. Now let's see the logical operators. This is something that you will come across for sure on every given day whenever you're dealing with the Python. So what is this one? So for example, end or not. So end or odd are like end or are like common, and not is like kind of an operator which we don't use much often, but still it's better to learn. It's better good to know. For example, let's see high income. Let's see one of the processors, they want to check whether the person is eligible for a loan or not, for personal loan and some amount of money. So for that, they would like to develop a program to check whether the person is like eligible or not. For example, let's say the person has high income. For example, if I say it is a true, which means that the person has high income, and if the person has good credit, let's say this is a true. So now we have got to know one of the person who is applying for this one. So he has selected the values using the drop down, for example, in the tool, like high income, yes, check marked. Good credit, he has check marked. So basically, whenever someone checks in a box or something, we'll consider it as a true in the programming world. And now, if high income is equal to true and good credit is equal to true. So what I'm telling, how I'm writing this code, if a person has both high income and good credit, I wanted to give for example, let's say here, let's say like eligible, the person is eligible to apply for a loan, okay, or else else not eligible, okay. So now what the end statement over here, both the statements, it should be true. So here the person has high income and the good grade, that's the reason I have mentioned it as a true. So for example, let's say if the good credit of the person is false, which means that he don't have a good credit. And but over here I'm telling that to my code there is an end statement here. So when I run this one, it will give you like not eligible. So what I recommend you, whenever you're using the if end condition operators, you always use these brackets over here. And why we have to use, I will explain this in like couple of minutes. But if you do this one, it is like very clear, like this one has to execute and this one has to execute, and this is like open and close. So you can do this one and it runs the same. Now let's see or statement. So if high income, okay, so the same program whatever we have written over here, if this is like confusing, I will write the same here. If high income is equal to true, print eligible, else print not eligible. So true and good credit is equal to true. So this is the program, right? So now if you see over here, this true, this is a boolean. This true is a boolean, but this true is not a boolean, and this true is also not a boolean. So when you see something like true and false, which is like automatically getting highlighted in blue color, which means that these are the keywords, inbuilt keywords. So wherever you written like true, it considers it as a boolean value. So the same program whatever we have written over here, so if you see over here the number of lines, this is what they usually look at, check in the Google interview. So for example, if you write a program like this, is equal to true, is equal to true, basically you are using too many keywords in the program. So once after you write this program, if for example, if I am taking your interview, the second question that I will ask you once after I check that this is working fine, like how can you short this code, short length the code, what else you can do for this one. And if you say like, okay, I can use a ternary operator, okay, that is like really good. Ternary operator is nothing but this one. And I'm like, okay, what else you can use to optimize the code, like how you can increase the speed of this one, right? So for that, if you see over here, these are the booleans, and for the booleans by default this is true. For example, high income, if you just execute over here, by default it returns true because it is a boolean function over here. So we really don't have to mention like true over here. The same program I'm going to write, if high income and good credit print eligible, else print not eligible. So when I write something like this, by default I'm thinking this is true and this is true, and I'm not thinking anything about the false, because if you mention something like this, you are telling to the program that hey, by default you have to consider this as a true. And if it is, the words are like true, false. Now let's mention like true here, and if I run this one, it will print like eligible because it is true and it is true. Okay, now let's see OR operator, how this works. If high income, so OR operator is nothing but if either one of this is true, this is like it will execute. So for example, high income, the person don't have a high income, but he has a good credit score. For example, let's see this one. Now if high income or good credit, so I'm telling that this time, okay, I don't want the person to have both of these. If either one of the qualities they do have, like a good credit or like high income, I'm very much okay to give him some amount of loan. So eligible, else print not eligible. So if I run this one, now if you see, because either one of is like false, true, it is like totally fine. The same here. So let's say both of them, they are like false. Now this will print as like not eligible. So this is how we use the end and or conditions. Okay, so now let's see the another one, which is the not. So what is the not? So not high income. So right now, for example, let's say high income and good credit. Let's say these are like false, right? And now if I print high income, basically it will print false. And if I print not high income, this will print as a true. So basically what not does is that it will change the boolean value. If it is a true, it will change it to false. If it is a false, it changes it to true. So for example, let's say I have these two, true, true, and I'm checking one more, whether the person is a student or not. If the person is a student, I don't want to give this one true. Okay, and now if you see, if high income and good credit, okay, and not student. So if someone checks as a student and I wanted to check whether the person should not be a student, so print eligible, else print not eligible, right? So now over here the question is that we have used like multiple ends, for example multiple end or and all. So now we have to understand how this program will execute. For example, here 1 plus 2 plus 3, so we know, so this 1 plus 2 will execute and 3 will execute, so the total it will be print like 6. For example, let's say 1 plus 2 minus 10. So now we will get this kind of a dilemma how this program will execute. So it executed like 1 plus 2 and minus 10. So for example, 1 plus 2 multiplied by 3. If someone asks a question like this, what would be the output answer? Can you guess?
9.
Okay, so let's execute this one, 7. So how it went is that
So he uses buttons. I didn't know. So it uses the mathematical operator. It did the multiplication first.
Yes, exactly. So it does the there is a precedent order. The multiplication will go first and this one. So now if I look at this code, for example, on my any average day, maybe I can think like, okay, 1 plus 2 is equal to 3, 3 into 3 multiplied by 3 is equal to 9. I think like, hey, the answer will be 9. But over here, because the precedence of the multiplication is high, more than the plus, so here 3 into 2 is 6 plus 1, 7. So we always have to remember that the kind of a precedence execution order. Now the same one, what I'm going to do, 1 plus 2 multiplied by 3. So now can you guess the output?
9 now.
9. So over here, so because we gave the brackets over here, so now the ones which are in the brackets, it will be executed first, and the ones with the numbers which are outside the bracket, which will be executed later. So this is how the brackets plays a key role in terms of multiplication or anything. So it's the same over here. And because we are not sure, because first we wanted, how we are programming, we wanted to first check whether the person has a good credit, this two, and then he should not be a student, he or she. So for these two, I'm going to keep a bracket here. And again, if you, by experience, you can understand like when I have to put the braces and when not. So now, if I run this one, the person is not eligible. Yeah. So this is how the brackets, they come into the picture. Is it clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So, and now we will see some more same like how we have seen the ternary operator. We will see some more, which is called chaining comparison operators. So this is like only used when you have something like a specific condition, then you can use this one. For example, let's say age is equal to 22, a person age. If the person age is like greater than or equal to 18, and age less than 65. So for example, let's say if the person is like age is greater than 18 and less than 65, print can apply for a job position. Okay, else not eligible. Let's say, I'm not sure what is the retirement age in your country, but here in India it is like 68 years only. Not that great. So if I run this one, so because the age of the person is 22, can apply for the job. For example, if the age is like 61, they are not eligible for the apply this one. So now again, if you remember the ternary operator, we reduce the 4 lines into 1 line, right? The same over here, what we can do. So now we have like two multiple conditions here by using n. Instead of these two, we can make it one, which is called chaining, like the motorcycle chain. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to take the age. So the age is like greater than or equal to 18 and less than 65. Okay, and then I'll just mark this one. If this one print can apply for a job position. So what we eliminated here is the logical operators. So instead of using the AND or operator and all, so I just reduced that one, and I just gave the chaining comparison I just use the chaining concept. So this is also, you can use this one. For example, if age is 25, can apply for a job. If age is like 66, not eligible for apply. So this is called a chaining comparison operator. So they may ask you like, hey, can you tell me the difference between, or else they can ask you like, how many types of if condition that you can write, like, can you explain me something? Then you can say like, hey, I use normal if, and in the if we can use else if for the else, and then there are like other types of like ternary operator. Instead of writing like a block of code, you can use like one line for the whole code, for the whole block. Or if in case if there are like some logical operators, and if I don't want logical operators to be there, I can also use the chaining comparison operators. Okay, now let's have one quick quiz round. So let's do this one. So we have two strings, apple, we have bag. Okay, so both of them, they are different strings, they don't have any correlation to each other. But I mean, let's assume that if someone asks like, if apple greater than bag, so someone asks you something like this, what's your first reaction? These are not numerical values. I mean, you can't perform any arithmetic ones. So what you will say?
I remember the um it's not a compared no, in the hexadecimal characters, A, for example, is less than P, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is something called ASCII values, or we can say like ordinance. So if you see ordinance of A, it is like 97, and ordinance of B, it is like 98. So if I run this one, it will return false, because A value, the first letter it will take, it is 97, 90. For example, if I say bag greater than apple, and it will say true, because the first ordinance is 98. 98, it is like 98 greater than 97, right? And for example, if you would like to know like for example, ordinance of capital letters, it is 65. It starts from 65, 66, 67. Ordinance of small a, 97. For example, if someone gives a character of for example 77, and if asked like what is a letter, ASCII value, American Standard Language, if you do this one, sorry, CHR, if you do this one, you can see like the letter M. So this might not be asked in the interviews, but it's always good to learn like what is the ASCII values, and how. So basically, whenever you write a letter 9, the computer takes it as a 97, like in the background. This is how the value will be stored.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay, so now important concept, loops. So we have two kinds of loops, for loop and while loop. So if someone asks like, hey, what kind of loops that do we have, you can say for and while. And if say like what is the difference between for and while. So for is that you have a code, and so for example, someone is writing an example, someone is like choosing an option for one of the questions, and you would like to give some 3 to 4 times of options, like they can select multiple options. Like for example, they select the option as A, and they click on submit. If in case if this is like false, I mean if it is not true, again you want to give like 2 more chances, like that. So for that you can use a for loop. For example, you would like to run program for specific number of times. For example, n is equal to 100. So what it will do, the program will run continuously for 100 times and it will stop, or n is equal to 10, or n is equal to 2, whatever it is. So you will say like, I wanted my program, my code block to run for 100 times or 2 times or 10 times. So here you're defining that, and whereas the while loop, it will run as long as the statement or condition is true. So for example, let's say bus will come to the bus stop on time. As long as it is like true, this keeps on running, and once you get to know the bus will not come on time, it will stop. It might not be a good example, but you can consider like for loop you can control, but it's like a trial and play. You have to give the specific number of times, whereas a while loop, you just have to pass a condition. This is my condition, and I wanted this program to run until as long as it is fine. Okay, so let's see this one. So range of 0, 3, what it will print? It is okay. So let's listen. For I is the value in range of 0, 3. So what I'm telling, so I is the value. So the range 0 of 3, if you print like with a list. Okay, so you remember, I mean, when we initially discussed, whenever we use this one, slicing the string, the last value will not be printed. For example, if I take a range of, for example, or else I can say like this one. For example, let's say a range of 3, it will print 0, 1, 2, but it will not print the 3 because it starts with the index 0, right? So for I, so this is like passing into this one. If I print this one, I, so what it will do, first the range 0 of 3 means it is nothing but 0, 1, 2. So the I, it will be passed into 0, and I'm passing and I'm printing the 0 value here, and then again it will go back because it has to go for 3 times, and then this time the I will be 1, and it will print the 1 value, and again this next time it is like 2, it prints the value 2 over here. So this is how this for loop works. And now for example, let's say I would like to attempt for 3 times. Let's see. For I in range 0, 3, or else you can mention 3 as well. So 0, 3. So I would like to mention print attempt I. So attempt 0, attempt 1, attempt 2. So basically it is running for 3 times. And I mean, if you'd like to have some graphics and all, for example, let's say after 0 you would like to have 1 dot, after 1 you have like 2 dots. I mean, just like to make it like to look like more fun, you can also print something like dot. So for example, let's see dot multiplied by 5. So dot in the columns, it will give 5 dots. So for example, dollar multiplied by 2, it will generate $2. So like that here I'm going to do dot multiplied by I. So it will give like, okay, for 0 it is not giving, so I'm going to put +1 here and a bracket. I mean, just for like fun, like after like if it is like 0, first attempt it will give 1 dot, first attempt 2 dots, second attempt 3 dots. So this is how the for loop works. And for the for loop there is something called else, like how we have if, else, like that we have for and else. And let's see how this is gonna work. So for example, let's say for I in range, so 0, okay, now okay, we are talking about this range, right? So you may think like, when in the real world I may have to use the range. So for example, let's say let's take a sheet. It's a Google sheet. For example, let's say name Rajiv, Pujala, Google, India, Alcon. So now if I have these ones, and now you know that you have data until 6th row. Now you wanted your program to work, to go through each and every row, and it has to check, for example, it has to check whether the name is Google or not. If it is Google, it has to print the value as yes or else no. So what you will do, for I in range So what you will give, you want to go until 6th. So you will put like 6 here. Now it makes sense, right? So now you know where until where the data is there. So you give that range over here. Now if it will start from here. So what is the condition? If it is a Google, then print like yes or no. So it will go here, it will print no, no, yes, no, no. So this is how you can use the for loop. And here, without else, because we use the else here, it is printing the no. So similarly, if I go back to here, so for I in range, okay, so if I print like successful, it will print successful for 3 times. But let's say I'm going to use something, a variable called message. Message is equal to true. So here within the for loop, I want to check whether the message value is true or not. For example, if the message value is like Google or company name, let's say like company name is equal to Google. So now I wanted to check if the company name is Google or not for 3 times. So what I will do, if company name is equal to Google, okay, so then print successful, right? So now if I execute this one, if you see over here, we have used a for loop to define how many times it has to go into this one, and also I'm checking a Google, whether the company name is Google or not. So I use the if condition, and if it is like matching, I wanted to print successful. Now if I execute this one, okay, it has printed successful for 3 times, 1, 2, 3. But in the first time when it went, the company name is Google, it is matching and it is successful, and again it is going through the same loop, and again it is checking whether the company name is Google, and again it is going. For example, let's say we have like some 30,000, okay, and if I run this one and see, it is like it has printed for 30,000 times, see over here. And for example, let's say if it has like 3 million, this code will run for like so much of time. But after the first iteration itself, I found that Google is there. The company name is the Google. So for that, what we have to do, it is very much important, you have to break. So the moment it matches, you have to break this one. So if I run the same one, it will be executed instantly. So this is how you can use the break statement. Or there is one more called continue. If you don't want to break, you can also use the continue, but let's talk about the break now. And now, so executed, this is like successful, this is fine. But what if the company name is not Google and if it's Alcon? Okay, Alcon was one of my previous companies where I worked for. So now I'm just limiting it to 30. So it will run for 30 times. Okay, so how we will get to know? Let's print if here, I here. Okay, so it ran for 30 times, 29 times, and the company name is not Alcon, and I'm looking for Google, it is like unsuccessful. So in those cases, I'm going to put else print Google is never there in the list. And if I run this one, see, the program ran successfully, and at the end it has printed this one, that Google is never there in the list. This is how effectively you can use the if conditions inside the for loop. And don't forget to use a keyword called break. If you don't use this one, your program will run like for longer time, depends on like how much range you are giving over here. And if in case if it is not matching,
So you work with the else condition outside of the loop. The else condition is outside of the loop, and it works.
yeah, it is not yep. So basically this else condition is for the for, not for the if.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what. So for if condition we have else, and also for condition we have else. So this one it ran successfully, and then it printed this one.
Oh,
So we have else for if condition, and we have else for condition. So this is where basically most of the times what we know is that this else condition is for the if, and whenever we say else, and we are like, okay, where is the condition? This condition is fine. So that's the reason we always have to read the program, the syntax in such a way that The using the intents, like
But for again, so what's the function? The else is not necessary. I could have just said print Google is never in the list. It will still work, right? Because it's
yes,
break, right? After break, I
yeah,
don't put the
exactly,
else
yeah,
and
exactly,
I put print Google is never there. It should work, right?
yeah, exactly,
Okay.
yeah, awesome. And now this looks clear. We will use the nested loops. Okay, nested loops is something that you can anticipate a question from, because like this is something like it is like not a very much basic one. It's like kind of a medium one for the nested loops. So nested loops is nothing but you write one loop, and within the loop you write one more loop. Okay, so for example, now you get to know for x in range of 1 to 3, what it will print here if I print x. Any idea? Like for example 0 to 3, can you guess?
Uh, so it should print 0, 1, 2.
0 1 2, right? 0 1 2. So now
Yeah.
inside this loop I'm going to write one more loop, for example for y in range, for example let's say 0 comma 5. Now if you see one here, for example for x it will go 0 first, right? And then it goes inside this loop and it will execute like 0 1 2 3 4. So if I say like print f um, x y, so how the output will be, I mean initially the x will be 0, so 0, and it goes to here 0, and then when x is 0 this one is 1, like 0 comma 2, 0 comma 3, 0 comma 4, and then now x will become 1, again the y it will start with 0, something like this. So if I do this one, it will print like this one. So this is how you can use one loop inside the other loop. So for example, I mean when we have to use this one, I will tell you. So for example, let's say you have um, x here, y here. Okay, you have data here like this, x and y. Okay, and okay, no, let's say, okay, this is like names, this is like result, passed, failed. So for example, now this Rajiv, so it has to go into both of these and it has to check, for example, whether it is there or not. And this Pujala, this has to go into both of these. Google both have to go into this one. So if you're performing some this kind of two individual columns, like two individual lists or something, in those cases the nested loops are like very much handy. Any questions?
No, got you.
Okay, got it, cool. So this one, so do expect a question for this one. And now let's see the iterables. Iterable is nothing but for x in range 3 print x. This is iterable because like this is iterating, like when x is equal to 0 1 2. Now this one, instead of the range, I would like to give my name. Okay, for x in Rajiv print x. So now what it will do, by default Python understands that, so this is like a string, but what it will do, it will consider this as a 5 times, and it will first take first letter, then second letter, then third letter, fourth letter, fifth letter, and it will like split the data into like multiple letters. Or else if it is like for x, it can be x or a or b or whatever. For a in list 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5, print a, it will take one by one and it will print the value over here. So if someone asks you like how you can unnest this one, a list, actually you can also use iterables. Okay, so this is a list and we have something called tuples. For example, for a in 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5, print a. So it's like the same one. So what is the difference between the list and tuple? How you can identify? A list is always identified by using this open and close brackets, the squared ones, straight ones, and whereas for the tuples it is like the round ones. So this is a list and this is a tuple. And we will talk about the list and tuple because I know this is like one of the most important concepts that you should focus on. And I will cover the list and tuples in a matter of 10 minutes. Any questions on the for loops?
No, it's good.
Okay. Okay. Next, we will talk about the while loop.